everybody. Welcome to the stream. I hope you are doing well. I've had a very busy day, but the day ain't over yet because we still gotta record a podcast. Still on my quest to do 2 a week. Haven't managed, but I'm trying. So here we go. Trying this week. I was planning to do the second one on Thursday, but I'm probably gonna. Well, no, probably I'm gonna stream the Dark Tide pre-order beta with Jonathan. So it's probably not gonna be any podcasting, but whatever. There's gonna be podcasting today, so normal ground rules apply. Let's test everything, shall we? Let's test this. Shall we do this? Hello. 1, 2, 3. Hello. Bam, 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 bam. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Hello. Bam, 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 bam. 1, 2, 3, testing. My arms hurt so much. I went bouldering this morning. So bad. Hurts so much. I'm not used to this. I'm too old for this shit. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. This cable is annoying me. So, everything clear on deck, I think. Let's do this show, shall we? Let's do this podcast. You're listening to The Private Citizen, a podcast for critical thinkers. This is episode 132 for Tuesday, the 15th of November, 2022. Twitter melts down. Hello, everybody. My name is Fab, coming to you from Düsseldorf in Germany. But, if you've been listening to the show before, you know that, obviously. On a Tuesday today, still on the quest to do 2 episodes a week. Haven't managed, haven't given up hope. We'll see. There's stuff coming up this week which makes it unlikely, but I'm trying. But that's neither here nor there. Today we're going to talk about Twitter again. I recently did an episode on Elon and Twitter, and a lot has happened since then, so we will do another one. Yeah, that's our topic for today. I hope you're prepared for that. Get yourself some strong liquor. There's gonna be some rants involved, probably. That's it. Oh, I got some other news. I'm writing a daily newsletter again, so if you're interested in that, there's a link in the show notes. privatecitizen.press. There's a lot of stuff in the show notes. I put a lot of stuff in there, like background information. I'm just gonna talk about some points of this. I'm probably not gonna put everything I have in the show notes into the show. So this episode, it's if you're interested in this and you want to read more, interested in this topic, it's probably a good idea. It's always a good idea to go to the show notes, to be honest. But today maybe more on this episode, maybe even more than with other episodes. So if you want to do that, privatecitizen.press. There's also at the beginning, of course, a link to my newsletter, which is at Substack. It's thesleepyfox.substack.com. I'm trying again to write a daily newsletter. Well, when I can. It's not going to be every day, but I'm trying. And maybe you'll like that. Have a read. You can read without subscribing, of course. I'll archive these at some point on my website as well, but that's fab.industries. That's my personal website. But, that's, it's neither here nor there. Let's get into the topic. Let's talk about Elon Musk and Twitter yet again. So I had talked about this topic in episode 129, so it's probably worth. That was so when I did that episode that night, I think I was still recording it when Elon entered Twitter HQ with the sink in his hand because of the memes, and that's when the deal was finalized, which wasn't a surprise, but so. A lot of stuff has happened since then. I didn't foresee any of this really. I was looking more big picture, but I think it's still worth talking about what has actually happened. And I'm not gonna just very quickly. If this is the first episode you're listening to, I'm not gonna reiterate. I'm going to do that now, but I'm not going to go into a lot of the points I made in that episode, in this episode. But it's worth noting that I've never been a friend of Elon Musk. I've thought he was a scrupulous individual and far from a genius for many, many, many years, and I've never understood how the Silicon Valley people, the people who have clout in Silicon Valley. And pretty much all the Silicon Valley journalists, some notable exceptions. John C. Dvorak is one, although he is not really a Silicon Valley journalist anymore. They've pretty much canceled him these days. How these people have they've always idolized him, and I've never understood why, really. And a lot of the disconnect that I will be talking about today, because I'll be reading a lot here from a Substack publication called Platformer, which is by Casey Newton, which is very well written, has lots of inside information, this whole thing, but it is marred by this kind of weird outrage about this whole thing that I don't really understand. And you have to understand I'm in Germany, so I'm going to go into some stuff in this episode that specifically pertains to employment laws, which are very different in Germany, which is why I don't understand a lot of the outrage in the US. And also I don't understand, just I'm going to say this in the beginning. I'm going to probably rant about this the whole episode, but what we're seeing here is a group of people that has traditionally it's always liked, self-made millionaires, entrepreneurs, which they generally see as inventors that innovate things, but I never did. I've always kind of recognized that the people working for these people, the engineers and the product designers, and those are the people who actually innovate. But, it's the Bill Gates, the Steve Ballmers, the Steve Jobs, of this world, the Elon Musks, that get idolized by Silicon Valley as kind of like the geniuses and the innovators, which they really aren't. They are successful business people, but kind of in the way that bankers are, or anybody who runs a large company. These people are, they get into a position of power, often through privilege, which is the case with Elon Musk as well. Some of those don't, for example, Bill Gates doesn't belong to that at all, but, it's college dropout and whatever. But the Silicon Valley tech press likes this underdog story, even though they often aren't underdogs. But anyway, they get into a position of power, and then they are successful at, navigating that, being ruthless, laying people off, stealing ideas from other people, making ruthless business deals, like Bill Gates, who famously needed an operating system and bought this operating system for basically, a very small sum of money from somebody, and then turned around and made the fortune selling it to IBM, basically, and founding his company. And as people will do things like that, And I never saw them as geniuses. In the Apple case, you can see Steve Wozniak as an inventor, and I wouldn't even say he's a genius, but he's an innovator. It's certainly not Steve Jobs. But Steve Jobs, the guy who gets idolized got idolized by the Silicon Valley tech press, even at a point where I don't want to really kick somebody when they're down or dead in this case, but he doesn't care. He's dead. A guy who made really weird decisions, including his illness and not treating that and being very unscientific about the whole thing, and that probably also being a factor. I don't know if he survived had he treated his illness properly, but that's something that I don't find. These are not people that I aspire to, right? But Silicon Valley and the tech press kind of does, even though they're often profess they're very science friendly and stuff like that. They're also always very going on about how capitalism is bad, right? They will sometimes in the same articles where they praise people like Elon Musk go on about how capitalism is bad, whereas Elon Musk is is one of the prime examples of the things that are bad about capitalism, right? Those are the people that the socialists would have put against the wall first. And we have Mode7 in Twitch chat, by the way. I'm streaming this live on Twitch as usual. You can watch this when you catch me in my unpredictable schedule. Mode7 also actually subscribed earlier. And then you can catch me, and you can also watch this on YouTube, the recording of this whole thing. All the details in the show notes, privatecitizen.press. Anyway, Mod7 is saying Wozniak was the man. Yeah, he was a smart dude, right? And a cool dude and an actual geek, which is why he didn't end up being the one running the company. These people run companies into the ground. They're geeks. But I kind of associate with those people because I'm like that as well. You can't be trusted with money, right? I don't know how many people. I mean, I've talked about this on the show before. I'm famously would have been a Bitcoin millionaire millionaire if I hadn't been an idiot. But I'm an idiot. I'm a geek. I can't deal with money. I like having doing stuff, having fun. I don't like being ruthless with people. I don't like massaging numbers. I don't think about these things. And Steve Wozniak, something like this. Whereas Steve Jobs is very different. And Elon Musk, obviously, throughout his ventures, starting with PayPal, with SpaceX, with Tesla, has a history of abusing his employees, of just being machiavellistic about pretty much anything. And so the whole situation that I'm going to talk about today that happened at Twitter is I didn't see it coming. This is in 2 weeks now, this whole thing unfolded. Everything I'm going to talk about happened in the last 2 weeks, right? So I didn't see it coming this fast. And I talked about last time how I think Elon Musk had some good ideas, which I still think, but his implementation is shit, right? Which is not surprising because he's not very smart, I think. And people have continued to think he's smart until I don't know, a few months ago, right? I would get. I remember. I sometimes listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and I think I mentioned this. And I think I mentioned this on this show, and I had listeners telling me, "You need to watch this. You need to listen to this video. This interview Rogan did with Elon Musk, and this was the second interview he did. And he's such a genius, and I'm like, I'm reading this, and it's feedback, and I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I should." And I'm like, but I was skeptical because I watched the first interview when he was famously smoking weed, and I was like, this is completely discombobulated. This guy's not smart. And the second interview was the same thing. He says things that are just weird as bullshit, and people don't understand it, and they assume that he's smart because he just throws out, if you just watch it and you're like, oh, that sounds semi-smart and I don't understand what he's saying, yeah, you could be under the impression that he's throwing out some Stephen Hawking fucking bullshit. But if you actually stop and pause the video and like reverse and listen to what he says and then think about it, you go like, this doesn't make any sense. And then you Google the terms you don't understand, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. And, as I said often on the show, I understand if, normal people in air quotes do that. You just watch Joe Rogan, you're like, oh, that dude's very smart. That's okay. But like, so I'm not blaming any listeners that sent me this. I don't want to blame anybody. It's cool that people send me stuff. I need that to do the show. But like there were obviously journalists who wrote about the podcast as well, and they were like, he's so smart. And they're like, you're a fucking journalist. If he says something, you can't just go, oh, I don't understand that. That sounds very smart. You have to like research the shit. And it's not like it's rocket science. Like the bullshit he says like falls apart the moment you just Google what he fucking said. You just Google a term and you're like, that's actually not what that means. What is he actually saying? And now he's doing the exact same thing at Twitter, right? He's just like fighting with Twitter engineers, talking bullshit, and they're like, he said something about remote procedure calls or something, and the Twitter engineer's like, the app doesn't use any remote procedure calls. What the fuck? And then he fires the guy, which was not surprising. Anybody, I mean, the guy probably saw that coming. The guy probably didn't care. And I do have respect for these people who are just like, I don't want to work for this guy, and they just quit. I think that's good. Somebody who's on his own volition quit a job. I know that impetus, and it's a very good feeling actually. It's scary, but it's also a very satisfying feeling. The guy's an idiot. Period. The guy is not very smart. And the problem is that was obvious to me. I mean, it's been obvious to me for like at least 10 years. And I read like stories on The Verge and from people like, I don't know if it was Katie Newton, but like from people like that who like for 10 years have been telling me how smart Elon Musk is. Right? And the great stuff he's doing. And then people are like, he put stuff in space. And I'm like, why's the US government not doing that? Like, why do we? And then, the way he did things also with SpaceX was like bullshit. And I'm like, it's like the guy, it's obvious that he fucking treats his employees like shit. He's not very intelligent. He just has random ideas and then implements them. I mean, he's very agile. I'll give him that. He just has an idea a morning, and then he has enough money and enough clout and enough power that he can just get people to do it. And he just founds a company, calls it Boring Company, and then makes flamethrowers. I mean, it's a good joke. But like, yeah. Motsam says he's not Tony Stark. Yeah, the thing with the Tony Stark thing, I mean, that's people used to say that about Larry Ellison and stuff like that. And Richard Branson, and that's, it's a movie, that's a myth, that's a comic, that is like, that's like Bruce Wayne. People like that don't exist. So I have believed for a long time, I've believed something, it probably came out of like me studying history or whatever, and maybe politics, but like I've believed that the real smart people, the real geniuses, I believed this for a long time. They're seldom rich and they don't run companies. They just don't end up in that position, because I think that so to me, people are smart because of two reasons. Either they're like I would call that like hard science smart, like brainy smart, or they're like emotionally smart. And if they're emotionally smart, they have empathy and they never end up in top positions, because in top positions you have to do shit like fire 2,000 people, right? If it's justified at Twitter right now, who cares? But like CEOs have to do that. They have to fire people and they have to be very ruthless. And basically what you're doing in business is you fucking over other people. That is basically business. And you can just sugarcoat it all you want, but at the end of the day, you're bending people over a table and you're fucking them against their will. That is basically what business is. And anybody who has a lot of empathy doesn't really like to do that, and so they don't gravitate to these jobs. And then there's people who are and these people who are like, I mean, there's this study, I don't know I don't even know how based in fact and science this is, but like there are these studies about how many psychopaths and I think sociopaths, but I think specifically psychopaths there are in the general population, and there's like a general percentage, and then the percentage is like double or 3 times that in prisons and in boardrooms, right? Because a lot of these people are at least sociopaths, a lot of them psychopaths. They have no empathy, and that's why they're so good at what they do. And they're actually selected to be in these positions because of that. Because you want people who are like that. You don't want a guy who needs to fuck other people over to have empathy. So that's why they end up there. And I think there's a what people often, and these journalists probably often don't realize, maybe, I think there's a crossover, or it looks like a crossover between really, really smart people and these people, because some really smart people, especially like, in the natural sciences, tend to be like also like sociopaths, maybe a little bit, or like, I don't know if these days, some of them would probably be classed as autistic and stuff like that, and because of that they also end up to be as eccentric, like famously Albert Einstein. Alan Turing had famously had lots of like people problems, and these smart people also have that as well. But in my opinion, the real smart people never end up in these leadership positions in companies, because even though they might lack the empathy, they're generally smart enough to see the impact such a behavior has on society, and they care. They're smart enough to care. Is what I think. I think a lot of these CEOs, they don't even like, they're basically they do horrible things on a maybe even a global, or especially on a societal level, to advance themselves and their company. And I think most of them manage to just lie to themselves in saying that what they're doing is right and they're innovating, whatever. And I think the really smart people, we're talking like the Stephen Hawking kind of smart people, they're smart enough that they can't lie to themselves in such a degree. And they also often have other pursuits. And, and the people I aspire to that I think are geniuses, they don't have to be like astrophysicists, right? They could also be just like writers. My favorite poet is Lord Alfred Tennyson. I think that guy was a genius. Like, if you look at somebody like that and their grasp on language, that's somebody I would call a genius, right? Somebody who goes, banks take like 3 days to transfer your money from a country to another, and that's like part of their business, because they make, they earn more money in that time with your money. And the internet is now at a point where we like need a payment system that works in minutes. I'm going to build that, or no, and not even I'm going to build that. I'm going to have some guy build that. That is not genius. I mean, you could maybe call it business genius. You could probably, like, if you aspire, if that's your goal in life, to be like the most successful businessman, then I guess you could call that being a genius. But to me, it just isn't, right? It's something that I could never do. Like, being that kind of businessman is as far from my own abilities as being an astrophysicist or being Lord Alfred Tennyson. But I also don't aspire to it, which I don't, that's why I don't see that as a laudable goal. And the problem is that Silicon Valley apparently does, which is why they're now very surprised that Elon Musk is an asshole and scrupulous. And so it starts with, the layoffs. There have been massive layoffs at Twitter because Musk just axed people. And so I'm going to read out a little bit from this, from one of these articles that Casey Newton wrote for Platformer, talking about this. But before I'm going to do that, I'm just going to look. There's been some other feedback from Mode 7. But Fab, not to detract from his seriousness here, but I have an incredibly hard time separating fiction from reality, and I think he's Tony Stark. I think he may be an actual practitioner of the Force too. Don't ruin this for us. I don't know. Maybe are you smoking the same thing as Elon? Is that maybe the problem? Yeah, I don't. I think there's nothing wrong with idolizing people, especially looking for role models. But I've never understood why people idolize people like that. Because I don't know, you just have to look at their actions and what they do. It's kind of like idolizing a guy like Lenin, like who went, not John Lennon, Lenin, like the Russian revolutionary, because you're kind of, I think, then looking at the outcome and you're like, this is like a really laudable goal. But for me, like, the actual actions speak louder than any goal, any words, because, at the point where you literally like just having people shot to get to whatever your goal is, that goal to me can never be worth it. So I never understood this. Anyway, so the layoffs at Twitter. So this Casey Newton is very well informed. Obviously inside people working at Twitter. Mode 7 was apparently just trolling me. Doesn't like Elon either. So he Casey Newton writes here. Friday's layoffs so this is like Friday last week, I think, or even the week before probably. Friday's layoffs have been brutal for all involved, including those involved in planning them, many of whom themselves lost their jobs. While the process varied by team, some managers were asked to submit to Musk's team 2 sentences about all of their direct reports, which by direct reports they mean people. I mean, there's already a way of writing this that I don't understand. 1 sentence explaining what the employee did and another sentence justifying their continued employment at Twitter. Managers agonized over the decisions and jockeyed with their peers in an effort to preserve employment for the most vulnerable among them. Pregnant women, employees who have cancer, and workers on visas among them. A former employee told me some teams were cut more than others, several were wiped out entirely. It turned out, though, the company went too far. As it was just the first report on Saturday, within hours of the layoff, some managers were already being told to ask select laid-off employees if they wanted their jobs back. Some employees are nervous that if Twitter can't get them to return voluntarily, the company will formally rescind the notice they received on Friday, laying them off. Under the Workers' Adjustment and Retaining Notification (WARN) Act, businesses with more than 100 full-time employees are required to give 30 days notice if they lay off 33% or more of the staff. At Twitter, that notice included a promise to pay people for the next 60 days and give them a month of severance. Now, workers fear that if they refuse to return voluntarily, Twitter will fire them for abandoning their jobs, depriving them of what otherwise would have been 3 months' pay. Some workers have begun to consult their lawyers, others over their options in the event that they are recalled. Others are in open revolt, tweeting public threats about various aspects of the organization. Various aspects of the organization that have been broken after the Ready, Fire, Aim disaster of Musk's layoff process. Now, whatever you want to say about these layoffs, and I think they're bad. I'm a complete friend of employee rights, and if you've been listening to this podcast, I think you know that. I did an episode explaining where I came from, my life story, so to speak, and how I've been brought up in a household that was very social democrat here in Germany, and I've always been basically a friend of unions, even though unions also have their problems. So I'm an ardent defender of employee rights, right? I don't like bosses, I don't like managers, and in a fight with an employee and a manager, I'm always probably going to side with the employee. Having said that, even though my dad ran organizations and companies, he was the CEO for a time in the past, so I also understand that running a company is hard and that you have problems and that you have to lay off people. There's some people who just don't work, or that they just don't like you or whatever. So you have to do that. But the problem they're describing here, I mean, I have a problem with these articles, and they're all kind of like this. You can go to The Verge, you can go to Ars Technica, you can go to German mainstream sites that talk about this whole thing. And this is not a problem with Twitter or with Elon laying people off. What they're describing here is horrendous employee laws in the US, and they're everywhere. The only reason Musk can do that is because employee laws are shit. And if you don't want this kind of hire and fire thing, then you have to fix your fucking employee laws, right? And I say that I've experienced German laws, which are on the other side of the gamut, and I've experienced, for example, I lived in the UK. I lived and worked in the UK. And the only reason I ever became a journalist was because I started my journalism career in the UK. And I worked for a very small company that, size of a startup basically, that gave a guy from Germany whose primary language wasn't even English, a chance to work as a tech journalist and write English news. And they only gave me that chance because, the UK hasn't as loose employee laws as the US, but like on the spectrum between Germany and the US, they are way further towards the US, right? And they just gave me a chance to do this because they could have fired me at any moment, and there was like little risk involved. A German company would never have done anything like this. I would never have gotten the chance, as somebody who had no formal training, who didn't have any, degree or anything in journalism. The only reason I got my start in this job is because of these looser employee laws. So I understand that they don't only have downsides. They also have a lot of upsides, because companies are a lot more flexible. They're a lot more willing to take risks and to hire people on a whim, and give people a chance. And, I was fired like this as well. Somebody came over, said the company is going to be closed. You get some severance pay for a few weeks, and you don't have to come to work in 2 days, and it's all shut down. And it's a horrible feeling. I went home that night crying. That day, like that was like, I don't know, 1 p.m. I went home and I looked at my wife, at that point, my girlfriend, and I cried. I broke down crying. That was a horrible feeling. But, it's trade-offs. And I'm not necessarily saying the German system where we have, in Germany, we have a law. It's by law, your employer can't quantify how much you work. That is not allowed. Bosses do that anyway, but it's illegal. That is incredibly challenging for managers, right? A manager's job is at the end of the day to figure out how much their employees are working. And if they can't do that, if they just have productivity declining and they can't know who it was, what are they supposed to do? Like, German employee laws have incredible downsides as well. Because it's so hard to fire somebody here, it's very hard to get a job, right? Because companies are afraid that they're stuck with you. And there's even bigger problems in our state, the people who work in government agencies, because they're basically unfireable. So my dad used to run a company that was half private and half, basically staffed with people that came from the employment agency. And the employment agency, basically, they couldn't fire people because they were government employees. And you basically have to, literally shit on your chefs, I say, chef in German means boss, sorry, on your boss's desk to get fired. Like, you literally have to be the only thing you had to do is turn up for work. Like, you don't have to work. You just have to turn up. If you turn up every day, they basically can't fire you. And my dad inherited some horrible people that weren't working. He was trying to run a company on a very, it wasn't a startup, but start up a company. And it was like really, really hard. And it was like really hard to get those people fired. And I do believe at the end of the day, I'm all for employees' rights, right? But like if you go to a job and you say, I'm going to do this job, and then you don't do your job, I think your boss should be able to fire you. If you have an 8-hour workday and you spend 7 hours of that drinking coffee, smoking, and talking to other employees instead of doing whatever you're supposed to do, I think you don't belong in that job. And so the German system has also a lot of downsides. But, I would prefer it to the US system. But, the US system is the US system. And this system is why there are startups, right? Why all these tech startups are in the US. There's a reason they're not in Berlin. And the politicians in Berlin can fucking, do backflip somersaults all day and do whatever they want to do. They're not going to get there. And this is the main reason. Now, I'm not saying we should change our employment. Well, we should probably change them a little bit, but, I don't think we should get there where the US is, because the downside of the US system is what is happening at Twitter right now. And this is something that as somebody who worked for a US startup, I know enough people who worked for a US startup. These stories that are in this description of what is happening at Twitter has been happening in Silicon Valley for 20 years. And, Twitter itself was never... Now you find all these stories. Oh, Twitter was the nicest place I worked at. And then Elon turned up and that was horrible. That is complete bullshit. I was back in Linux Outlaws days when, back in the day I was on Jaiku, and then I moved to Twitter, and I was like microblogging, as we used to call it back then. I was always a fan. So I talked about this a lot. And I did talk, we had stories about Twitter being a horrible workplace. Same thing is this morning, I was in my bouldering gym, and I went bouldering, and I bouldered so much that I couldn't move my arms, and I had to ride home on the bicycle for about 4 minutes. That's about my weight. That's how far I'm from the bouldering gym, and I couldn't do it. So I had to just sit there. I bought some coffee. They have like a cafe area. And they, I just hang out there. Actually, before I explain this, Mode 7 with a good point here in Twitch chat, video game companies are a great example of terrible employment laws allowing shitty work conditions. Yes. And I personally think it's not only video game companies. I think in the video game industry, this is more publicized. I think a lot of programming companies are like this. And not only in the US. I know people worked at UK programming companies who've told me stories about their employment conditions where I'm like, what the fuck? Why are you even... But anyway, so I'm at this bouldering gym and I'm just hanging out because I fucking need my arms to recover a bit so I can ride home, right? And there's this guy talking to a girl who just came in, and they know each other, and he's like, are you at Twitter? And then he keeps talking about Twitter, and then he talks about how Elon broke all these systems and how all these things and features and how Twitter's now shit and everybody's leaving it, right? And I talk about Mastodon. By the way, I'm gonna do this episode on why the Fediverse is not an answer very soon, because everybody keeps talking about Mastodon, and I actually signed up to a Mastodon server again, but Mastodon is not the solution. But that's really for another story. Astro C says, mentions Blizzard here, the video game industry. Yeah, but I think that's a Silicon Valley problem. Blizzard is in Silicon Valley. This is, well, not really. They're in LA, I think, right? But in this culture, this is a culture who glorifies just working long hours and shit like that. It's just unbelievable. California was a mistake, says Astro. I think I agree. Yes, I agree. So there's this guy that's bouldering, talking to this girl, and I can tell that that guy was on Twitter for about 3 years. He's like, Twitter's broke, no, you can't use it. I'm thinking, dude, I for my bubble, I signed up to Twitter in, I think, May of 2008, and that's 14 years ago, and I think that was incredibly late, for my bubble. That was because I resisted going to Twitter because I loved Jaiku so much, and Google had to kill Jaiku for me to move over. But like, I mean, have you been on Twitter like this kind of like 12, 13, 14 years? Do you remember how shit Twitter? Do you remember the fail whale? I'm pretty sure I didn't want to talk to this guy. I was like, I'm good. My brain's gonna explode. I was just listening. I didn't really want to talk to him, but I should have asked him, like, do you know what the fail whale is? Can you remember? Twitter was like notoriously unstable, and we're talking at a time when nobody fucking used Twitter. This was the time that a lot of nerds kind of, like Mastodon now, because they're like, it's like the golden age of Twitter, when nobody was fucking using Twitter. Like even the video game guys weren't on Twitter. We're talking like open source and like a few podcasters, people listen to Twit back in the day, and then like the lawsuit between Twit and Twitter and all this shit. And Twitter was horrible. And back in the day, like the infrastructure was shit, and people worked on it was saying it was shit. And everybody was saying, like the Jaiku people, and then, some of the Jaiku people went to Twitter, and then I still talked to them afterwards, and they were like, this is horrible. This infrastructure is completely bullshit, and they don't know what they're doing. And, Twitter has been a disaster of a company pretty much from the beginning. I mean, I fucking love the platform. I like this format. I mean, I liked Jaiku more back in the day, but and then at some point Identica, whatever. But we'll talk about that in the Fediverse episode. But I like the product. I like the idea, but the company's been shit. The infrastructure's been shit. The people running that thing been shit. Like, a friend of mine wrote an article. I don't know if I want to say who it is because he might get annoyed. But a friend of mine wrote an article mentioning, because I understand why, because this has been all over the press. Also, this Twitter being broken and shit now is all over the press, which is why this guy got that from the mainstream media somewhere without knowing what's actually going on. And like, this friend wrote that like Elon's something about Elon's unstable management. And I just said to him, dude, I can remember Jack. Do you remember @Jack on Twitter? The guy who used to be CEO, who fucking like grew that beard and lived basically in a cabin in the woods. And there were like all these weird stories about how like he just turned up to like an all hands meeting and had no fucking idea or whatever. Like, I don't know if these stories are true, right? It's kind of like the Elon stories now, and it's kind of like internal. I don't know. But like, there were like all these stories about like they're having no focus. And the things you can corroborate is that Twitter for the longest time didn't make any money, which makes the next point so funny, that everybody's like, oh my God, Twitter's going bankrupt now. They're not making any money. Twitter has for the almost the entirety of its existence not made any money. And these fucking assholes in Silicon Valley, including these fucking journalists writing about this shit now on The Verge and, from Vox and all these fucking assholes, right? They didn't fucking care. Like, they were just, Twitter doesn't make any money, and, they can't get advertising working. They have no business model. There used to be like the inside joke for years, and everybody's like, but yes, Silicon Valley, you don't need a business model, right? And now Elon comes in and says, hey, look, we have no business model. We need to fucking sort something out, which I don't like the guy, and I don't think the way he's doing it is right, but like, that is a good idea. Somebody much smarter than him is probably advising him, probably told him that. That's a good idea, but like to just go, oh my God, Twitter's losing advertisers now. They're gonna go into the red. Twitter's been into the red for a decade. Nobody fucking cared. And now everybody's like, it's so blatantly just like piling on. It's like the fucking Trump thing. Where like for years, the journalists, they were just piling onto Trump. Yes, of course Trump is an idiot and was making dumb things, but you're just like, I don't know, at this point, it's just ridiculous. Right? Especially when you're now complaining about things that are just like par for the course a year ago at any other company and at Twitter. Like, you're not literally complaining about things that you didn't care about, and about a guy who you thought was a genius. And now he isn't, because the current thing, TM, is that Elon Musk is an asshole, right? So he must be breaking Twitter. He must be an ass. He is breaking Twitter, yes, but like, I don't know. I'm going to lean myself out of the window here, but I firmly believe that whatever, like, he could fire the complete engineering staff, and for the next probably 2-3 years, even if they don't touch a line of code with Twitter for like 3 years now, I think in 3 years it's still going to be better off than Twitter was like in 2009, when Leo Laporte said everybody should join Twitter, and then like, I don't know, 10,000 people joined Twitter, and that thing just completely died. Like, and for years you had like, the World Cup was on Twitter stat. Something happens in what Twitter stat. And now they're like, we built all this amazing infrastructure. Yeah, you get your fucking, and the way they got that working, by the way, it's not like all these websites are writing about now, go to Private Citizen Press. There's much more detail I'm not going to go into in all of this, how they are like all amazing, and the engineers and Twitter, people will notice that all the amazing engineers, they fucking just cut all the features they had in the beginning. Like, Twitter used to have, your timeline used to be the fucking fire hose, right? So I'm subscribed to about 5,000 people on Twitter, which back in the day we used to call pulling a Scoble. If anybody remembers the Scobleizer, Robert Scoble, he was famous for just following everybody, and who actually, I think at some point broke Twitter because he followed too many people and his feed was too busy, right? You used to have that back in the day, right? That was what Jaiku was also. You just had the fire hose. It wasn't the fire hose, it was just your feed, and Twitter couldn't handle that anymore, which is why they went to all this algorithm shit, not because of smart AI. No, when they got enough users, they couldn't handle to display all the messages, right? It was too much. They cut the whole infrastructure. They cut a lot of stuff down in many respects, but like the biggest part is like the algorithmically changing your timeline and doing all this shit because they couldn't handle it. The reason you can't edit tweets, you kind of can now in the old Twitter Blue, you could, I think, but the reason you could do that is because they couldn't technically pull it off. As far as I can understand, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but like, I think back in the day, you'd write a tweet and then it get duplicated on all the fucking whatever, not like the Fediverse, but like their load balanced federated server infrastructure. And then the only thing you could do was like delete it. But like if you had the ability to edit it at any time, that back in the day, I think, that's what people, that was what people was writing about back in the day. It was just too much like impact on the infrastructure. So it's not like Twitter's been this amazing thing that's always worked well and always made a lot of money and always like worked well with advertisers. No, Twitter's been technically has a long history of having technical problems, has a long history of cutting features because they couldn't roll them out properly, has a history of pulling back features because they fucked up when they rolled them out, has a history of just playing with things, like how the pictures are uploaded, displayed, how videos, length of tweets, just fucking annoying their users with things. So everything that Elon's just doing in these 2 weeks, Elon's just like making all these mistakes that Jack made over 10 years in 2 weeks. Because he's an idiot. But it's not like that, it's like so new. Mozart says, thank you for pointing out that Twitter hasn't been making money all along. Yeah, it's so amazing that people, like, if you just listen to this podcast and you know what Twitter is and you're not that involved, of course. No, I'm not saying you should know that. But, like, the fucking world should know that because they wrote articles about this back in the day. Twitter was the in-joke. Like, it was always, every few months, I can remember, there were articles. This is the upside of doing this shit for a long time and having at least a little bit of a brain left. You remember these things, right? There were all these articles how like Twitter is like not making any money, has no chance of making money. It's just living off like money they raised. Like, and I remember like with this Elon Musk thing, like Sequoia Capital gets mentioned a lot, and they've been in there from the very beginning. Right, they've been you remember this? Remember all the funding rounds? There were all these news about like, oh, another Twitter funding round. They raised like some obscene amount of money, like millions of dollars, and they're just gonna squander this again because they have no way of making money, and like the ads doesn't cover it. Because also like they had to make like basically one of the reasons they made the algorithmic changes was like to get the ads in there, right? Because the Twitter timeline, as Twitter was back in the day, was really not very conducive to ads, especially if you followed a lot of people like me. You just like the ads were just getting drowned from from everybody else, and they're not like interesting, so you don't even like look at them. And they had to change this whole way of like how they show the ads, and that there's not always there now, but like that's just the way how the client loads now. Remember back in the day, Twitter actually used to have an API that you could just build, how random, like Twitter for the longest time didn't have a fucking mobile client. They just had the website on mobile. It was shit. So there were all these apps. There were all these Twitter apps. And then Twitter came out with their own client, which has always been shit. It's been shit since it's launched. It's gotten shitter. Elon's right. The app's the Twitter app is fucking atrocious. And I don't care if it's a remote procedure call. It's a fucking atrocious app. And it always has been. And the amazing thing was, I remember, this was on Linux Outlaws when the news came out that they were going to cut off all they first wanted to cut off all third-party Twitter apps. And people fucking revolted because they were like, I can't use the normal app. Like, it doesn't even load my timeline properly. And the Twitter app, like, to this day, if you fucking use it, you scroll through the timeline and you get your tweets and you load, and then, you can like pull down and it loads more tweets. And then it does this thing where if you scroll through the timeline, you see a tweet that you find interesting, but that's how the human brain works, right? You read, you scroll past it, and then your brain goes, hey, that was interesting. And you try to pull it back. And the moment you scroll the feed back up, so you don't even load, you don't want to load new tweets, right? You just want to go in your timeline, like, I don't know, 5 tweets back. So something scrolled off your screen. The moment you scroll back, it loads the whole fucking timeline new, and you can never find that tweet again. Especially, like, back in the day, it used to be a problem that it loaded so many tweets that you had to scroll a long way back. But now it's like fucking algorithmically, and half of the time it just doesn't show you that tweet anymore. Because it's like, when you scroll down, it rebuilds your whole feed with some fucking other criteria, whatever. So a lot of the time that tweet just isn't there anymore. You're just like, who built this shit? And now they're going like, oh, Twitter was amazing, Elon Musk broke it. No, Twitter was never amazing. Twitter is, I don't know who said it. I think it was said on Twit, This Week in Tech. And Leo Laporte's been repeating this ever since. But it's very true. Twitter is the nervous system of the internet. Twitter is so important by a fluke of just like that small like character message size, which originally came from text messages, blah, 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 blah. Twitter is so important and so successful because it fills a niche in the like between emails, which are between private people, and blogs, which are long form, of just a way of informing all of the internet, or the people want to know publicly of something. That is what Twitter does. It's the nervous system of the internet. And that is why it is successful. And that is why it has a ton of users. And Mastodon can never fill that, which I'm going to explain in an upcoming episode. But because Twitter is, I can just spoiler that episode, by the virtue of the fact that Twitter is one service that everybody can find. And it's by the very fact that it's centralized. It's like the central nervous system of the internet. If you decentralize it, it doesn't work anymore. no matter how much many people want that, and I learned that with Statusnet and Identica, it just didn't work. But no matter if you like it or not, Twitter is important. This is why it's very important source for the media. And any journalist who says I'm going to go off Twitter, I don't believe them, because as long as the people are on Twitter, as long as important news are on Twitter, they will stay on Twitter. And I'm not even going to go in the show notes. I'm just going to like riff this now, freestyle this whole episode. And it's going to be a massive rant, but like this whole reporting is atrocious. These people are not thinking. Like there's literally they're complaining in these stories about how it's horrible that all the advertisers are leaving Twitter. What kind of a perspective is that? Right? I mean, I can understand, well, Twitter's going to go bankrupt, so Twitter's going to go away. Right? Users need Twitter, users want Twitter. I like Twitter, so I'm going to report. I just had a beard hair stuck in my microphone pop shield. Sorry, I get distracted by that. I might as well take a drink now to relax a little bit. I mean, I can understand the users want Twitter. I want Twitter. So I'm kind of... so it's kind of bad news if Twitter has no advertisers and then will go bankrupt, right? But from a user point of view, advertisers not being on Twitter is a good thing. Who fucking wants ads? Nobody wants ads. The only people who want ads are companies and that have to spend ad budget to get tax cuts and advertising companies. Nobody else likes ads. There is a point to make, maybe, if ads were actually relevant. And that's something that's been the promise of AI and smart algorithms and all this fucking technology from Silicon Valley is we're going to have, at least, we're going to show you ads and everything, but at least they're going to be relevant to you. And one of my biggest pet peeves in technology is that no matter how much data I give these fucking people, they can't figure this shit out. Right? To this very day, I've had one Amazon account ever since I've been on Amazon. Right? And I've bought a shitload of shit on Amazon. To this day, Amazon keeps recommending me shit that I've already bought on Amazon. And we're not talking tissues or, I don't know, condoms or whatever. Like things you would buy multiple times. I'm talking like some Bruce Springsteen album that I bought in 2005 or whatever. I don't need a second one. And if Amazon was smart, they would have realized that I haven't bought a CD in many, many years because I'm just fucking using Spotify. But like the algorithms aren't smart. And Amazon is like is Albert Einstein compared to Twitter. Twitter it's almost comical how like I am on Twitter since 2008. I follow 5,000 people. I'm going to look this up now. Okay, let's do this live on the show. Let's go to Twitter. Twitter.com/Fabsh. Let's go to my profile. Been on Twitter since May 2008. Oh, it doesn't say how many tweets I've written. Is that because I've minimized this thing? Didn't it used to... Oh, up there. I wrote 131,500 tweets. 131,500 tweets. Twitter knows fucking everything. Like, if they were smart, they would know they would know more about me than Google. I mean, me specifically, because I live my life on the internet and on Twitter. They would fucking know. They know everything. Like, if they just analyze their fucking data, they can't serve me a relevant ad to save themselves. I don't think I've ever got one relevant... Like, I get... back in the... I would tweet about Linux all the time, and I literally get ads from Microsoft. I get, like, ads for female hygiene products. I get ads for jobs in India. I mean, I get it's comical. I regularly get ads for things I hate. You know, not even ads that I don't care about. Stuff I fucking hate, like cargo bicycles, like stuff that I hate with a passion. It's that I've tweeted about that I hate. It's like, and I'm not the only one. This isn't just me. Like there's it's well documented that Twitter can't do this. I mean, Facebook famously ate Twitter's lunch. There was a head-to-head at some point. There have always been a head-to-head of users, right? Which Facebook won, clearly. But there always also was a head-to-head about who's going to be profitable first and who's going to make more money, who's going to be better at advertising. And Facebook just ran away. Facebook just took the Facebook completely is dominating what used to be like classified ads in newspapers and magazines. Like that business, like, you know, a lot of the other advertising business went to Google, specifically that business, and like the shitty, cheap shit like wish.com bullshit that used to be like in newspapers and on websites. That's all gone to Facebook. Twitter didn't get any of that. And Twitter, they were head to head at some point. Like, you know, with users and with ads. Like, people forget this shit. Like, they were comparable, those companies. And no matter what you say about either company, Facebook got massively successful. Like, what's the 10 biggest companies? I think, like in market cap, isn't Facebook in there? Is this market cap? This is. Yeah, accept all cookies. I don't care. Investopedia, do we believe this? So Amazon's on 3, Apple's on 5. No, I think we want market cap. Market cap. Business Insider. So they've got it. Okay. Biggest companies, market cap. Apple, Saudi Oil, Microsoft, Alphabet, which is Google, Amazon, Tesla, Berkshire Hathaway, United Health Group, and Meta, right? So Johnson & Johnson. So Facebook is in the 10 biggest companies in the world by market cap. I don't know where Twitter is, but Twitter is, so it's not even on that list. Twitter's over the horizon. Twitter is like on Uranus. On Uranus, yeah. It's not even a comparison. And these companies, they used to be comparable. Like, Facebook fucking ate their lunch. So, a few advertisers leaving Twitter, like, who cares? The users don't care. Like, there are literally users on Twitter right now laughing at Elon because he's losing ads. What, you want more ads than you? So, like, what kind of masochist are you? Like, what? They're probably using ad blockers anyway. But like, you're like, what? That's just because you want to dump on Elon. Not be like, all, and these articles are the same way. It's like, it's completely, it's idiotic. As Lucy says, the reporters are already in the advertisers' pockets and also their warm term. I don't think they are, to be honest, because I've worked in these, you know, I'm not in Silicon Valley, but, you know, I've worked in the tech press. I don't think they are. I think they're actually independent. They're just dumb. They're just buying the same. They're just buying this bullshit. They're buying this. They're buying their own. They're drinking their own Kool-Aid. You know, and just, it doesn't matter. Like, so a company that for like 90% or 80% of its existence didn't make any money and just lived off raising money from venture capital firms, from rich people who have too much money, then made a little bit of money, now get a new CEO, and now they're not, like, worst case, they're not making any money anymore. By the way, in the worst economic crisis of the last 100 years, at least, you know, so that's a factor. Who cares? Who cares? They seem to have survived the decade without making any money. I mean, they can't be losing more money than like 10 years ago when they lost like all of their money and they didn't make any money, right? I mean, even if Elon gets like 500,000 people subscribing at, I don't know, was it $9 a month? That's probably still more than Twitter made 5 years ago. Maybe not 5 years ago, but like, when I joined it, certainly, this is ridiculous. Are these people even reading their own? I don't get it. I don't understand these people. But anyway, unsurprisingly, this whole thing completely fell apart. There were massive layoffs. There's like amazing chaos that gets described here. As today began on Twitter, someday last week, there were essentially two groups at the company. One employee told me those working on projects that Musk had been deeply involved in, such as the revamped Twitter Blue subscription, and everyone else. The couple of teams that are on his pet projects are doing 20-hour days. I shouldn't laugh at that. That's horrible. But, it's the normal work day in the video game industry when you're, when you're trying to launch a game. One employee told me, but the majority of the company is just kind of just sitting around. No chain of command, no priorities, no organization chart, and in many cases, no idea who your manager or team is. Sounds like any tech startup. Meanwhile, the health team was told to listen to Musk's advisor David Sacks' podcast. I like this. It's a podcast, man. Wait, do I have the Adam Curry here somewhere? Wait.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a podcaster.
Thanks, Adam. To listen to David Sacks' podcast for insights into why they had just lost half of their colleagues. I should laugh at this, but it's just funny. According to a former employee, Sacks, a venture capitalist who has been helping manage the Musk transition, co-hosts the All In podcast with fellow Twitter advisor Jason Calacanis, also famous Silicon Valley asshole, and VC Shamta Palihapitiya. Yeah, I'm not good. I'm presuming that is an Indian. This name originates from India. I'm actually sorry about that. I'm horrible with those kind of names. Quote, the most recent podcast covers the current layoffs happening across tech and provides some insight into why this is happening and necessary. The vice president told employees, I think it is worth listening to in order to understand the macro environment we are operating in. So listen to this fucking podcast. That's the new future of work for you. Of course, then Musk launched this Twitter Blue thing, which, I've talked largely about this in the last episode. He also discussed a paywall, that Twitter might be completely behind a paywall. I don't know if that's going to work. Yeah, we'll see. Well, and that's like a paywall where you can tweet so much a month and load the feed so much, but when you get over that, you have to pay. You kind of like newspapers do these days. The Twitter Blue thing. I mean, I've talked about how that's also a thing. These journalists go on about how that verification system, they make it sound like it was fine, which it wasn't. I went into that last episode. It was less kind of unpredictable who they verified. It was kind of like a stamp of approval. They used that to take the stamp away from people, to punish them. And so I think the idea of revamping that was a good idea. It's just like the way they went to do it was idiotic. I mean, and it was idiotic because wait, I'm gonna have to look up where this part is with Stephen King, because that kind of says it all. On November the 1st. So this is something we're going to talk about a little bit later. This was a document that was prepared by Twitter employees to warn Musk of impeding problems that would probably happen with his plan of like the new check mark. On November the 1st, when the document was circulated internally, Musk was considering a $99 a year annual subscription for Blue. Only later, after an exchange online with writer Stephen King, did he lower the cost. The move would wound up increasing the risk for scams as the desire to make fun of brands and government officials became an impulse buy at dollars. Now, this whole story is about, of course, what happened when Musk made, like, as they say these days, democratized, which has nothing to do with democracy, but democratized the check mark, so make it able for everybody to buy that check mark. What happened was, like, some jokers who created accounts, like, for example, for Nintendo of America, where they renamed, so on Twitter, like, I'm at Fabsh, right? And I use as the display name, I use my actual name. Fabian Arscherschel. And then I have an avatar. Now, Nintendo is like at Nintendo, and they have Nintendo of America as their display name, and they have like their Nintendo logo. And so there were now some people who went and renamed themselves Nintendo of America, used the Nintendo logo, which they just downloaded off the Nintendo account, off the actual account, and then bought the check mark, and there were apparently people then believing that this was Nintendo of America. Now, some random idiot on the internet believing that because they don't fucking check anything is no surprise to me. But journalists going like, this is a problem, I don't understand that. Because you have an account that has the Nintendo logo, that is called Nintendo of America, and then behind the Nintendo of America it says at random dickhead 4578. That isn't hidden. That is shown everywhere. The ad name is shown everywhere. It's obvious that it's not Nintendo. I mean, yeah, if you make an account like the real Nintendo, maybe, but then if like Nintendo is posting like Mario is gay or whatever, or like, some account like renaming themselves LeBron James and just like putting the picture on there and then going, oh, I really want to be traded, I hate my current team, and the account is like at massive joker with massive testicles 69, like, who actually falls for that shit? Like, I understand that it's a problem. Like, it's a brand safety problem. I understand that. Of course it is. Because people are idiots. Like, the idiots will fall for this. But why is this a thing where journalists whose job it is to, like, research things go like, yeah, this is a real problem? No, it's not. Like, seriously, it's not. Like, anybody who has half a brain, like, we have other problems. There are deep fakes, right? There's fucking hackers. There is this state-run disinformation campaigns. Like all the shit the Washington Post's been talking about for years that are fucking with our elections and all of this, right? And we need people to like discover that. And that's ostensibly what all these journalists are doing because they're writing about this the whole time. And we're still at a level where somebody can't look at the fucking ad name and things like ad stupid cunt 47 is actually the Nintendo account just because it has a check mark, which now means something else, which was announced. I understand when there's like a fake account for Eli Lilly, which is like a pharmaceutical company, which I always cracked me up. That's like that's the weirdest name. And they go like, oh yeah, what was it? Insulin's now free or whatever. And then they get retweeted like 6 million times because either people think it's funny or people are idiots. And when they go, yeah, okay, we don't want to be a Twitter advertiser, I can completely understand that. I can. Like, I do. I do understand that. But like, it's funny, and if you want to dump on Elon, yeah. So I would be all for dumping on Elon because I hate the fucking guy, but this is just like cheap shots. This is just like, it's not even trying. It's like making fun of Trump. after like all the jokes have been made 16 times over. It's like, oh, he has a horrible comb over. That tan is fake. I've heard that fucking joke for the last 8 years. Not funny anymore. Right? Jesus. Just fucking these poor, like, people. These journalists. And it goes on and on. Then there's the contractor layoffs, right? Where they go, oh, they laid off so many contractors. And it's like, yeah, of course they did. They laid off employees. Of course they're going to lay off the freelancers. What do you expect? Right? And then, I mean, there's funny details, like unlike Twitter's full-time employees, who at least got a courtesy of an email informing them that layoffs were coming the night before, contractors received nothing. Neither did their managers, who discovered one by one over the weekend that people that they've been counting on to perform critical tasks had suddenly disappeared from the company's systems. One of my contractors just got deactivated without notice in the middle of making critical changes to our child safety workflows. I mean, that's, of course, now we have to go on about, worrisome Twitter, it's just because child safety. Now we have to pull this child porn card like the fucking government does every time they wanna curtail our personal freedoms. Now we have to do that as well. But like, I read that and I go, yeah, that's funny. And then my brain goes, why the hell do they have freelancers working on these critical, like, Twitter manager? Okay, I read that. Okay, if I was a journalist and I got that from a Twitter manager, my next question, would have been, all right, why exactly do you have contractors working on this critical infrastructure on contracts that can apparently just be terminated overnight? Like, and if you're doing that, why are you not prepared for these contracts to be terminated? Riddle me that, my friend. As we say in Germany, jetzt kommst du. What the fuck? That tells you everything. That has nothing to do with Elon Musk. That tells you how shitty how like, I firmly believe that the large factor of what Musk is currently, chaos he is causing. He's causing because he's an idiot and he's ruthless and he's just pampered and he's surrounded by yes men probably, and he can do whatever he fucking wants, and people like that are dangerous and they will do that. But the reason that he can do that just shows that there's like no like safeguards against this kind of stuff. That the infrastructure at Twitter is shit. Their management is shit. All this bullshit. Like in these stories, they're talking about like this I think guy who they're talking about like the problem with the brand safety and the advertisers pulling out for understandable reasons, and then they go on about like the de facto marketing head of Twitter, and then they're saying something. You're like, what do you mean de facto marketing? Don't they have like a CE, like whatever, a chief marketing officer? Probably CMO, I have no idea. Is that the CMO? I've got no idea. Like, why don't they have a title? Why is there a de facto? That tells me that even before Elon Musk, this fucking company was in shambles, which is not a surprise because it was run by @Jack. If you want derailed tweets, okay, you can look at @Elon Musk, but you can also look at @Jack. Astral C says, because no one cares about verified, as there are more real people that aren't verified and are big enough on other platforms and are known by name. Like yourself, you are a public figure, sort of, but not verified. Yeah, kind of not really, though. Yeah, I'm not known. Yeah, I do think generally, I mean, we're power users, right? We're the guys who don't think Random Joker 69 is Nintendo of America, right? So we know, like, we're not that dumb and we don't care about the checkmark. But I think normal users really do. Like, they really do. And Twitter really trained them wrongly what this checkmark means, which is like they're verified to be a certain, like, and yes, that is true if you had a checkmark. But because so many people didn't have a checkmark, it really doesn't mean anything because they handed it out so randomly, right? And then and a lot of people, I think that's more like people like me. I mean, if you look at my Twitter feed, it's clear that it's me, right? And that's also a weird thing about Twitter, because there's a lot of people that aren't verified who obviously tweet themselves. And then there's a lot of people who are verified, like who have a team tweeting for them. If the check mark means this account has been verified, that it's a person, right? Wouldn't that mean that @Springsteen is fucking Bruce Springsteen taking his phone and tweeting? Which it isn't. I don't, Bruce, you gotta, guy's 73 and looks amazing, by the way, for 73. And he's doing fucking albums. He released an album this week, full of covers, which is something different for Bruce, but it's a good album. It's fucking blues. Listen to it. It's called Only the Strong Survive. It's a very uplifting, by the way. It's a good album for the current times. Anyway, so I'm not blaming Bruce for not tweeting under @Springsteen, but like, doesn't the checkmark kind of mean that? And when I like people who just tweet themselves, and they were a little bit of a troublemaker, which is kind of why I like Trump tweeting, because it was fucking him. Nobody else would invent Kofifi, right? I respect those fucking guys. And those are the accounts I care about. I don't fucking care about Eli Lilly's account. They can tweet whatever they want. I don't give a shit. They're a pharma company. They're basically the devil incarnate. What? It's just these. Yeah, I think I'm getting you, Astros. I think you're right. What you're saying is like that these what they're writing about in the press is like so disconnected from how actual users use this, which is actually, we have some feedback later in the feedback section, where a producer wrote in about the previous episode with some interesting thoughts about Twitter and what it means and whatever. I have to say one hilarious thing also about these layoffs, which is, I mean, I feel with people getting laid off. I've been laid off myself, and it's a horrible feeling. It's much better if you quit yourself. Pro tip: if you have a chance, quit. Even if you see it coming, the act of walking into your boss's office and quitting is extremely satisfying. Like, no matter what negative consequences it might have for you, which there are probably some, it is very, 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 very satisfying. So if you can do that, but there's like I really shouldn't make fun of people getting laid off. I do feel with these people. I'm making fun of the journalists writing about this, and of course in this case, let me not get his name wrong, Casey Newton. Where was this thing about the layoffs? So there was so this is about we talked about them getting laid off, and this was Elon hadn't even wrote an email to the company, right? And then we have the following thing happening where he actually starts doing that. We have, so the dramatic unwinding of the company's senior ranks began overnight. Okay, this is again a week or two ago. In the hours after Twitter's new owner made his first official communication to the entire company. The email came at 11:39 p.m. PT, which I guess is Pacific time, long after most employees around the world had gone to bed. Elon obviously keeps my kind of schedule, which I kind of like. Sorry that he's a nighthawk. Sorry that this is my first email to the whole company, Musk began, but there is no way to sugarcoat the message. The message that Twitter's future is, quote, dire, Musk wrote, an effect of worsening economy and the company's dependence on brand advertising. Without significant subscription revenue, there's a good chance Twitter will not survive the upcoming economic downturn. We need roughly half of our revenue to be subscription, which is, that's kind of that's the same problem that journalism has been facing, so these journalists should know about that. Musk linked to the spaces he had held with Spaces is like a hangout on Twitter, if people still remember what hangouts are. Google Plus, that's a blast from the past. I bet that guy at my bouldering gym, I can't talk anymore, has no idea what Google Plus is. Musk linked to spaces he had held with Roth and Wheeler and ended with a bombshell. Every remaining Twitter employee was expected to return to their offices to work beginning Thursday. And then there's this multiple paragraphs of how this is illegal and they can't do this because they've promised people from working from home, and Twitter always said working from home. But like the bombshell is that the CEO says, guys, I want you to turn up at work. And I'm sorry, but like I'm a tech journalist and I like writing about tech and I like writing about new things. But I think you can only do that properly if you have a grounding in reality. And for that, you have to listen to people at your bouldering gym, which is not reality. Or maybe at your supermarket checkout queue, right? Talk to normal people. You have to do that. The Silicon Valley people, journalists, don't do that because they're just surrounded by the whole hipster fucking bubble they all live in. And they don't know the realities of normal people having actual jobs. And these are all very well-paid people, these developers, compared to, a guy working at McDonald's. They make a mint. They make a lot of money. They have nice flats, they have nice houses, even if they don't probably think so generally. But, they're just like me. I don't make much money, I think. But I'm better off than probably 80% of the population in Germany, maybe 70%. I know that I'm well off compared to people who work menial jobs, right? People who get my bins, put my rubbish away, right? People who clean the streets, people who fucking drive cabs, and if somebody like that reads an article like that and they go like, we're talking massive layoffs, right? On a backdrop of massive layoffs of people fucking being fired. Like the bombshell with the other people that are still at the companies, like that they have to actually turn up to work. Sorry, what? I'm sorry. Like for hundreds of years, people have actually had to turn up to work. That used to be normal. I understand that we're tech now, and with a tech company you can do that and you can work remote. Yeah, but if your company's in a fucking crisis and they laid off half of your employees and your boss says, get your ass to work next week, you better get your fucking ass to work. You've not fucking complain. Oh my God, now I actually have to go to the office. Like, these are the people that are on Twitter that always complain about how people are entitled and fucking privileged, and how old white men like me and shit. You're the fucking you're not even entitled. You're spoiled little fucking brats. I mean, I can say I just work from home all the time, right? But I used to go to work. I used to have to go to work. I mean, I didn't like it, but I fucking, for over a year, I did 150 kilometers one way to go to work. 4 days a fucking week. Later, 3 days. But like 150 fucking kilometers. My mother, when I was a kid, did like 45 kilometers one way. Every single fucking day. 5 days a week. Like back in the day, people actually had to go to work. And they didn't die. Right? And they could get their child. And there's like, so these sob stories about like, now I don't have childcare for my kid and all this. I mean, sorry, what? First of all, if you don't have childcare, that's not the problem of Twitter, of Elon Musk. That's your fucking social system being shit. Secondly, what do you mean you don't have childcare? So what you're telling me is you're actually working from home and you're also supervising the children? Which means you're not working as much as me if I'm doing the same job because I don't have fucking children. I probably work twice the amount because I don't have to fucking care. You have to fucking work. Get somebody to look after your fucking kids. Having kids is a fucking privilege. It's not a right. Jesus Christ. Sorry, I'm just ranting now. But like, I don't, like these people, they're like complain, we're in a fucking recession. We fucking tanked the economy by our stupid ideas of, we all have to stay home. And then I remember the jokes. around 2 years ago. Fight combat the. I can't even remember. I did an episode like what was it? What was the wave thing? I have to look this up in the show notes. Private citizen, not press, by the way. Somebody's gonna say it in chat. You need a rant mode overlay for your stream. That would be I would have that rant mode. Or flatten the curve. I would have that on the whole time. You could just tag the podcast with that. Flatten the fucking curve. And I was like, this is going to ruin our economy. Oh yeah, people are so worried about the economy. People are dying. Yeah, you'll eat those fucking words. Because we fucking tanked the economy. And then we did, let's boycott Russia. Let's that's a genius idea, because they're getting all the energy from us. That's we fucking there's people who have in Germany right now. Germany is a very rich country that have problems paying their bills. They can't pay their power bills. The food is too expensive. They're not making enough money. And our government is like, oh yeah, we're going to help you with our amazing social system. It's going to take half a year. Right? Our finance minister said, I'm going to do an episode. I know, I keep promising this episode, but these are all on the docket. I will do them next year. I don't know. I'll do them. I'll do an episode about like the traffic light coalition, right? Which I really liked. And I like the idea. And I will do a post-mortem on like the first year and how shit they are. Like the fucking green finance minister, when people said, well, the costs go up, and like, people who run a bakery, it's a very power intensive, but they're not making much money from selling fucking bread rolls, they'll go bankrupt. And our finance minister said live in a talk show, the finance minister, by the way, Robert fucking brain dead Habeck said, well, I don't understand why they go bankrupt. I mean, they will not making any money for a few months, but that doesn't mean they go bankrupt. That's the finance minister of the Federal Republic of Germany, one of the strongest economic states in Europe, probably the strongest economic state in Europe, one of the strongest economies in the world, not understanding bankruptcy, who thinks that you can run a company and not make any money for a few. I don't fucking know anything about money. I don't really run a company. I just work for myself. But like, I fucking know that. I know if there's money going out and there's no money coming in, then you have a fucking problem. We have these kinds of problems. We have people going bankrupt. We have people not being able to fucking pay their bills. Right? And there's people coming, oh my God, I'm going to have to work. I'm going to have to go to work to do my coding. I mean, yes, they do. They have hard jobs. They work a lot. These are stressful jobs. I'm not saying being a programmer is amazing. I wouldn't want to be a programmer. It's fucking atrocious. But like on the grand scale of things, you're living in a fucking bubble. You have to fucking poke your head out the window once in a while and just leave fucking San Francisco, right? And go down to, I don't know, Milwaukee or Wyoming or fucking, I don't know where the fuck you have to go. Go to fucking Mexico and ask, just go pop over the border and ask how the people are doing over there. Jesus. Rant mode over. I don't know. So Elon was like, yeah, Twitter might go bankrupt. To which Robert Habeck said, I don't understand. They haven't been making money for years. How would they go bankrupt? This is actually a good point. Why would they suddenly go bankrupt now? I mean, it's probably a thing, right? Where like, it's probably how like venture capital works, right? You can start up a company and then it's completely accepted if you just lose all the money they give you for like 10 years. But at the point where you start making money, there's probably no way back, right? If you then go back, you probably actually have to declare bankruptcy, even though it doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, Sequoia Capital could just keep giving you millions every year. Could they? I mean, these hedge funds, fucking private equity firms. I mean, couldn't Musk just bankroll it? Isn't he the richest man in the world? Couldn't he just fucking bankroll Twitter if he wanted to? I do like this one comment where like this one guy going, yeah, this lawyer, he's laying off people, and there's going to be like, they don't have all the compliance officers, and there's going to be GDPR problems in Europe and all this, and the FTC is investigating Elon. And then this guy, I can't remember his name, like Elon's lawyer, just said, like, I think he wrote, might have been The Verge, I don't know, but he was like quoted as saying, Elon puts rockets in space. He's not afraid of the FTC. Which is like it's not like Elon is in the rocket, right? He just puts his fucking car in the rocket. It's not like that's scary for him, but I did get a kick out of this comment. And it's like, I don't know, it's hilarious. It's like, for me, it's like I have this love-hate relationship with Twitter. I love the platform, but then also they kind of shadow ban me. I fucking hate everything they stand for, like, politically, and they're just fucking atrocious. I mean, at least it works now for a few years, I was kind of disappointed. That was also like a propaganda move. Do you remember? Just stories from the war here, right? Grandpa Fab telling stories from the social media wars. Kind of Derek Smart like. Do you remember when they took away the fail whale? Because everybody was making fun of them, right? So Twitter would go down. Something would happen. There'd be like an event. Twitter would go down. And at this point, Facebook was gaining traction. And then everybody on Facebook would just be making fun of Twitter. And just the internet, TM, like Reddit or whatever was, everything else that was still online, would just be flooded of pictures of the fail whale, which, if you don't know, I probably have to put that in the show notes. So we're going to have to look that up. Twitter fail whale. It was this like really cute picture of a whale, being carried by birds, right? So I'm gonna put that in the show notes. Privatecitizen.press. And this is RIP fail whale. This is apparently in 2013. Twitter got rid of the fail whale. Not because Twitter was stable at this point, but it was kind of like Katerberg. Hello, in Twitch chat says, first time I've seen you around, I think, commenting here. I missed the fail whale. Don't we all? But like, they get rid of the fail whale as like a propaganda move, right? Because they were like, oh, Twitter is kind of like Microsoft getting rid of the blue screen of death, and now it's just like a smiley and a QR code. It's still the same thing, still kernel panning. Like, Twitter would still fuck up. They would just show you like I don't know, what was it, 501? Was that 501? Is that a bad gateway? Is that what happens most of the time when Twitter goes down? They would just do that, which, that was kind of that was the dumb move. The failure was cool. And like, they got it under control if you like a while later, right? So Twitter now is really stable. It is like they do have good infrastructure. I believe they have good engineers, but it's like really weird that like if you work in a job where you can just get a new CEO, right? And he comes in and he just fucking guts the company and just fires everyone for no reason, and you disagree with him on Twitter and he fires you. Yeah, the guy's an asshole. No questions asked. But we knew that. Right? We knew that ever since PayPal. There have been stories out of PayPal. Everybody who's been paying attention has known that Elon is an asshole for at least 10 years. So the real question you should ask yourself, if you're a Twitter employee who got laid off or who's like disgruntled now, is like, why the hell do you work at a company where this can happen? You should try to get hired at a company where this kind of thing just can't happen. And not even depending on the employment laws. Like, it's America, right? You just need you need a contract. You just need a contract where this can't happen, and you can sue them, right? Because it's fucking America. If you had a good employment contract and Elon Musk just comes along and fires you because you disagreed with him on Twitter, you just fucking take him to court. Like that cave diver. Okay, that didn't really work. But like, that a good example for Elon Musk being an asshole, by the way. I don't know. I think I talked about this on the show before. When the football team was stuck in the cave and like they were running out of air, and like there was an international rescue to rescue them with all these cave divers, including some from the UK. There was this guy who organized the rescue, and then Elon Musk, as a publicity stunt, went, "Oh, we just built this submarine at Tesla, and I'm going to send it over." And the cave diver was like, "Don't bother, mate. We got it under control. We know what we're doing. We're professionals. This fucking submarine wouldn't even fit to the fucking cave." And I think he said "fucking." And then Elon Musk called the guy a pedophile, because the assumption was he's a UK man who lived in Thailand. It's like, okay, he went over there, sex tourism. He's a fucking pedophile. And then the guy sued him and sadly lost, because, Elon Musk has unlimited funds and probably the better lawyers, which was a bit sad. But bottom line, if you just have a good employment contract, can't you just take him to court? It's like fucking America. There's people who want millions of dollars in settlement because the fucking coffee in a McDonald's cup was too hot. In Germany, German judge would just go, "Sorry, what? I mean, you bought a hot coffee and then you drank it or you poured it into your crotch. I mean, condolences, but I mean, it's hot coffee. What do you want? Like, what? I mean, I'm sorry for your loss, but you kind of brought that on yourself. Like, what the hell?" Unlimited funds and better lawyers is the answer to the best contract, especially in America. Yeah, but I don't think they have, so probably wouldn't work. But I don't think they have, like, that doesn't scale though, right? If you fire 5,000 people, do you do class action lawsuit? I mean, they could all sue him individually. And the thing is, that is actually not true, because this is America. And if there's a rich guy and you actually have a good chance of winning, they'll just settle. And I mean, if you go, okay, just give me 10 million, like Elon's not even, like 10 million is like, he loses that at like Baccarat, probably. When he's like in this James Bond situation with all the other supervillains like Jeff from Amazon and Bill from Microsoft, and they're all sitting there and Bill stroking the cat. I mean, there's like one chip in that game. It's like fucking 50 million probably. They're just gonna settle, and you can, Mode 7 says employment laws vary from state to state. Some states are right to work states, but more appropriately are right to fire states. But I mean, wouldn't California have, I mean, I'm saying this now, I'm like, California is the most hippie state. They have all these laws against, like, I've been to California. You go somewhere, it says like on the cash register, it says like, oh, these substances may cause cancer. You're like, okay. But probably because it's Silicon Valley, I have no idea about this, but I would guessing they lobbied all the politicians and they're like a right to fire state. Because otherwise, the video game industry wouldn't work. Anyway, I'm going to stop ranting about this now. I think I made my point. I think this is a farce. Yes, Elon Musk is an idiot. Yes, Elon Musk is an asshole. We knew that. And the public would have known that if the fucking Silicon Valley journalists did their job in the last 10 years. So no, they don't get to go, it's all Elon's fault. Oh, how surprising. Right? No, they don't get to do that, because they didn't do their fucking job. And they basically put this guy on a pedestal for the last 10 years, even though it was obvious that all these problems persisted like, Tesla is a fucking shithole company. Jesus Christ. There were all these stories about them just having like batteries just lying around and be blatant fire hazards. The cars are just dumbly designed. And just the tech press goes, oh, it's amazing. Elon Musk is amazing. And people keep buying the cars because they say, yeah, this is so great. No, they have fucking design flaws that I'm not a fan of German cars, all right? I've never been. I like Renaults, right? I mean, I drive a VW, but it's kind of just, I mean, the Bulli is a nice car, but it has fucking design flaws. Anyway, but Teslas have design flaws that German car companies like fucking figured out in 1921. Well, not that, but like in the 40s, right? Like the fucking first Tesla, where this guy opens like it's like raining, and he opens like the boot, and the water, like, and then you figure out, hey, other car companies figured that out, which you never think about, but there's like this, the car boot is designed in a way that the water just collects on the edge and then runs down and runs along the side and runs off the car. No, on a Tesla, it just runs into your boot. And because it's watertight on the bottom, because it's so amazing, you'd actually have to get it out with a bucket. Because the car's designed by fucking idiots who wrote JavaScript before. I don't know. And they're like, oh, it never rains in California. So this fucking guy in North Carolina or whatever, it is like, oh my God, this is what happens when it rains. And I try to put my shopping in my Tesla. Like, this is not new. Look at all the SpaceX fucking rockets crashing. You know, when Elon was doing his, who has a bigger dick with Jeff from Amazon. They're like, oh, my rocket's even shaped like a giant penis, says Jeff Bezos. And it's just crashing all over the place. Like, if NASA had crashed that many rockets trying to get to the fucking moon as Elon Musk has, it was like, oh, I'm trying to land this rocket so it comes back. Oh, shit, didn't work. You know, the only people crushed more rockets are the fucking Russians. It's like they would have never kept their funding. I mean, ist präziser, so it becomes das Boot. Also, das Boot. Bing. Alarm! Kein Muss ansetzen, Männer. Anyway, let's get to the feedback, where we will also talk a little bit about Twitter, because why not? And I have to get the fuck out of here because I've been ranting for far too long. Anyway, so in reference to my previous episode on Twitter, well, on Elon Musk and Twitter, Necros in the forum said, our correspondent from Russia, we're not going to give out more details because of OPSEC reasons. An interesting question you ask there. What would the optimal way to go about these public forums? You know, it's kind of, I was talking about the societal importance of something like Twitter. I know it's supposed to be fora, but forums just sounds better. I agree with you on that. And how do we make them and support them as a society? You say you have no answer, and I admit I don't have one either, but I would love to have one, of course. Yet something makes me think that the real answer is looming out there somewhere. You see, back in the good old Greek city-state days, there was literally that public square where I have very smart producers on the show, also known as listeners, which I do really like that. Back in the good old Greek city-state days, there was literally that public square where the discussion took place. But it still was, of course, more complicated than that. I can visualize someone of wealth and power ordering their slaves to break their opponent's leg so that the opponent doesn't reach the square. I mean, it was ancient Greece. There was shit like this going on. It doesn't make the speech. I can visualize someone presenting the ideas so radical and so much against the public consensus that the presenter gets cancelled. They called that ostracism back in the day. Yes, we should bring that word back. It's much better. To ostracize somebody. Where's that actually? Ostracize. Etymology. I don't want to know where that's from. Mid-17th century, from Greek ostrakizein, from ostrakon, shell or potsherd, on which names were written in voting to banish unpopular citizens. Oh yeah, they used to smash those pots to vote, right? Ostrakon. Ostrakizein. Ostrakizein. Ostracize. That's some good etymology right there. Yeah, I'm a language geek. I can visualize someone, we had that. ostracism. They called that ostracism back in the day. I can visualize some ideas never allowed to the square circulating in private gardens and among friends until the point these ideas get a foothold in society and onto the square. Like, we should normalize just fucking boys, young boys, because isn't that wonderful? Actual historical fact. What I'm trying to say here is it's not just the square facilitating the public discussion. It's the whole complex mess of intertwined ways of people communicating, both publicly and private. Don't we have the same thing now? There's Twitter, there's TikTok, there are Facebook groups, there's ActivityPub for all its federation, walled communities, and voluntary net splits. There are Instagram influencers, there are private blogs and RSS feeds, there are WhatsApp group chats and Telegram channels and mailing lists and Discord instances and YouTube channels and Twitch streams and forums, such as this one. He was writing this on the Fab Industries forum. Links in the show notes, Private Citizen, the Press. Even newspapers and radio talk shows. Yes, still, there are lots of people still listen to the radio because, surprise, they're actually driving cars. And Discordia knows what else. And it all works to common end, to facilitate communication between communities, groups, people, different camps, conflicting agendas. And the whole thing constantly evolves and changes. A blog gets popular with reposts and discussion. A social network becomes obsolete. A YouTube channel gets popular and is promoted and amplified. A Mastodon instance is set up and gets promoted and popularized in particular subculture. Then a multiplayer game suddenly is where almost everybody is socializing. This is so true. And the in-game chat becomes an important channel for public discussion. Happened with WoW, actually, I think. And then a new iPhone-only multi-user voice chat becomes that. What was the name? I can't remember. It was supposed to kill all the other forms. Fireside or something? For good, not 2 years ago. No, I can't even remember what it was called. I can't either. But I know what you're talking about. Clubhouse. Wasn't that Clubhouse? And then an eccentric billionaire purchases another social network, and then another idea-sharing hot new service takes off. The endless flow, each one important at a given point in time, some acting as pivot points on one way or the other, not a single one really critical for humanity to go on. And all the while, accompanied by offline one-to-one and one-to-many communications. That's getting less, though, I feel. And Elon Musk buying Twitter and taking it to new summits or reducing it to shambles is just another turn on this endless road, just as another plot twist in this point. Isn't that, you can almost not say anything about this anymore because it's so philosophical and so true. And now I have to look up this word because otherwise I always get it wrong. Because Necros says in brackets, looks like now I have to look up that word again. I can never remember how to say that. Looks like I should have stopped one beer earlier, but it's Sawin, so there you are. I always and this is a peculiar fact about me. I always want to pronounce that Samhain because there is in Warhammer 40k, there's an Eldar sect called Samhain, which I think that's where the name comes from. And I always, they're like jet bike riding. They're like red and white. Eldar. They were always my favorite Eldar clan. Craftworld, to be more specific. I'm going to have to put that in the show notes. Nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about. I think that's true. I think that probably negates everything I just said this episode. But I just had to get that rant out. I think in the grand scheme of things, that's probably right. And it's gonna change. And somebody like me goes, now it's on TikTok, but you can't fucking communicate in like 30-second videos. But we used to communicate in like 150 characters, and people were like, you can't do that. And we did, like even before threads were a thing. Oh, this reminds me, by the way, I talked to somebody about this very recently because everybody's talking about Twitter, and I'd forgotten this. And this is a very interesting fact. Just speaking to innovative or not innovative Twitter was. You know that Twitter invented the hash. Well, Twitter popularized the hashtag, right? And this occurs to me because I was talking to my brother-in-law some time ago, and he's a chef in a hotel, and he had like some guy. He was like a really young apprentice, and he told him like, okay, so what you need to do is like we finished this, and then you need to call reception in the hotel, right, from the kitchen. And you do that, and you go to that phone, and then you press the hash button. And in German, the hash is called Raute. And he was like, push the Raute button. And the guy was like, what do you mean? What button? He goes like, that button, like on the dial pad, down on the right, down there. And the young guy goes, oh, you mean the hashtag button? So, fun fact, Twitter didn't come up with the hashtag. Twitter popularized the hashtag, but the community actually invented. There was, I don't know, I forgot who it was. It was like some guy who invented the hashtag, and then people ran with it. And this was long before it was like built into the UI, so you couldn't click on it or anything. You had to use third-party tools. You could kind of search for it, and later on you had like, I think there were browser extensions. There were kind of like these browser extensions you have for like Twitch chat, where you have like special emojis, where you could actually install that, and then you could like, it would actually interact. You could interact with the hashtags. And then very, very, very late in the game, Twitter fought this for a long time, and then at some point they just went, oh, all right, gonna implement it now. And so that became one of the biggest features of the platform. It's something that pretty much any social media and any other website has, like, to the point where like categories in blogging software are now often hashtags. But like, it's you mean the Octothorpe? Is that actually, you know, I should know this. I'm a typology nerd. Says Astros, the Octothorpe. Yes, I mean the Octothorpe. Let's read from Wikipedia. The symbol is known in various English-speaking regions as the number sign, hash, or pound sign. The symbol has historically been used for a wide range of purposes, including the designation of an ordinal number and a ligatured abbreviation for the pounds avoirdupois. No idea what that is. Having been derived from the now rare other symbol. Since 2007, widespread usage of the symbol introduced metadata tags on social media platforms. To introduce metadata tags on social media platforms led to such tags being known as hashtags. And from that, the symbol itself, sometimes called a hashtag. Yeah, in German it's called Doppelkreuz or Rautezeichen or Raute. Or sometimes we also call it hash. Let me see, hashtags. Does it say who came up with it? The use of the pound sign in IRC inspired Chris Messina to propose a similar system on Twitter to tag topics of interest on the microblogging network. He posted the first hashtag on Twitter. How do you feel about the using pound for groups as an hashtag barcamp message? It was Chris Messina. Interesting. So obviously, yes, from IRC, that should have been obvious to me as an old Linux nerd. That's cute. Says Carterberg in chat. Oh, no, that's actually a response to Astro. In Hebrew, its name can be translated to little ladder. That's where it comes from. Yeah, in parts of the US, they call it the pound sign, which is confusing. Yes, because the pound sign obviously is the pound sterling sign. Anyway, that's how the hashtag came about. So not something Twitter invented, but they were bullied into using by the community. That's how innovative Twitter is, by the way. Anyway, I just keep ranting. Let's stop this madness. And you can support this this project, this podcast, in various ways. There are various ways to become a producer. I mean, you can send feedback, which is very important. Oh, I haven't said that. Please send me feedback. Like, it doesn't have to be as intelligent as Necros's feedback. It can also be as low intelligence as my rants. Please let me know. Private Citizen or Press, there are links in there. Please do that. And there's also lots of information. You can support the show. I've been going on for way too long, so I'm not going to bore you with the details. Patreon, PayPal. Do that. I'm just going to thank the people who made this show possible. So thanks to, and there's a guy, the car just went past at like 70 kilometers per hour in a 30 zone. Damn. I wish I could have like a little, I'm turning into an old man. I should have like a little laser thing. Just go bing. Maybe then I get like a 10% like commission from the police department. I'd be rich. Anyway, I'm not rich, so I thank the people who supported the show. This episode: Sir Galtaran, Rodane the Insane, Steve Hose, Butterbeans, Michael Small, 1I11G, Jonathan M. Hitai, Michael Mullen Jensen, Jaroslav Lichtblau, Dave, Sandman616, Jackie Plage, IKN, Bennett Piata, Rizal, Vlad, Avis, Joe Poser, Dirk Didi, Indie Game EX, Funny Mansour, Kai Sears, David Potter. A lot of these people have been with me for a long time, and I thank all of you. Cam, Mika, Mr. Amish, Road Forcer, Captain Eckhead, Crunkle, sorry about that, Crunkle, RJ, Tracy, Rick Bragg, Ricky M, Astrosi, Barry Williams, Jonathan, Super User, D, and Florian Pigorsch. And also thanks to all my Twitch subscribers, which I can't list because Twitch isn't giving them to me. They don't have like an API or something. I can thank Mode 7 is unavailable because he just subscribed during the show. And also Katja Berg. Thanks for the follow, by the way. Thanks to everybody. The people subscribing on Twitch help me as well. Like, they support my other streams. Currently, I'm pretty much only streaming the podcast. Although I'm getting into Warhammer 40k Dark Tide this week, heavily probably. But they support the show as well because on Twitch you can subscribe and then you can do the if you have Amazon Prime you can do the Bezos bucks and you can just subscribe for free to a channel and it's also get money and it helps. I also thank Bytemark at bytemark.co.uk, first class UK cloud hosting company who's been supporting this podcast for a long time. They've given me server and bandwidth for many, many, many years, and I couldn't do the show without them, so thanks to Bytemark. And also thanks to Raul Cabezali, who wrote the song Acoustic Roots, which has become the theme of this podcast, which is dear to my heart. And I'm going to play us out. I'm going to try to be back this week. I keep saying that. I keep not delivering, but I will try once again. I'm going to play us out with the song. This is, I don't know, some metal. It's sounds to me a bit Metallica inspired. Kind of liked it. It's a long song, but it's really nice. So this is Blood of Garuda by the band Carvings, and Aim to Misbehave. And as we all know, a very easy way to misbehave in today's society is just ask the next question. Keep asking questions. Someone gives you an answer, ask the next question. Keep asking them. Just fucking ask them. Keep asking them. Aim to misbehave. All right. Got that show recorded. And yeah, very ranty episode tonight. I agree. That's it for me. I'm going to have to get the show out now. I'm going to radio on to Alifa, which is one of my favorite streamers. It looks like she's finishing Red Dead Redemption 2 at the moment. So we head over there, say hello from me, and I'll be back on Thursday. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. As always. See you soon. Say hello to Alifa from me, please.